Hello, I'm Pete Martin. This is lesson 2 in the Beginning Mandolin series, and this lesson is on tuning the mandolin. To tune a mandolin, you need a reference note. There are several ways that you can get a reference note. You can get one from a tuning fork. You could get a note from an instrument that is in tune. You could just search on a search engine, put A440. 440 cycles per second is the note A, which is the equivalent of the A note on the mandolin. If you just put in a search engine A440, you'd find various sites that will give you an A440 note. How most people do it today is they use either a clip-on tuner like this, that you play a note and it tells you what that note is and whether you're sharp and flat. And what I tend to like to use more is an app for a smartphone or for something like an iPad. On my iPhone, I like to use the Peterson strobe tuner. There's a number of tuners that are free. They're reasonably accurate, and then there's ones like the Peterson that costs, anywhere from $5 to $15 that can be extremely accurate. So that's what I use. You'll need to read the documentation that comes with your tuner to understand how to use it. But most of them, you simply play a note. It tells you what note you're closest to and whether you're sharp or flat of that. Now, it also assumes you know something about how notes are named. So we need to look at that here so that you understand enough of it for then you can use your tuner to get your mandolin right in tune. There are 7 letter names that we use in Western civilization music to name notes. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So 7 letter names. However, there are 12 notes that we can play. So there are some that are in between the letters. So here are the 7 letters. Now here are these 7 letters with brackets where there are notes in between those letters. Notice that there's a bracket in between A and B. If you look at a piano and see where an A note is and where a B note is, both the A note and the B note are white keys, but there's a black key in between. It can actually be called 2 names. It can be called A sharp. Sharp in music simply means higher sound. Flat means lower sound. Because it's one note higher than A, we could call it A sharp, but because it's one note lower than B, we could call it B flat. It's actually 2 names for the same note. It depends on how we look at it. It's either one sharp of A or one flat of B, so that's why it has 2 names. So in between A and B, there's a note. There is no note between B and C. There is a note between C and D, which once again could be named C sharp or D flat. There is a note between D and E, which could be D sharp or E flat. There is no note in between E and F. There's a note in between F and G. Once again, could be G sharp. Could be F sharp or G flat. And there is a note in between G and A, which could be G sharp or A flat. So, if we do those, name them that way, we have 12 different notes, and you'll see them here. Okay, so those 12 note names would be A, And then the one that's A sharp or B flat, remember two names for the same note. B, C, that's 4. C sharp or D flat. D, D sharp, E flat. E, F, there's no note between E and F. F sharp, G flat. G, G sharp, A flat, and then we start over again at A. So there's 12 different notes. Now, one of the things I didn't say was what the symbols look like when we read those. The sharp sign is the little tic-tac-toe sign, or the number sign, and the flat sign is just a small B. So here I will write A sharp, and here I will write B flat. It's really important that you know the names of these notes and how they relate to each other, simply because if you tune your A string and the readout when you play your A says G, that means that you are 2 full notes below the A pitch. So if you'd tune up from G, you'd hit G sharp or A flat, and then the next note you'd tune up, you'd hit A. So you need to know those note relationships at least well enough to then use your tuner to get your mandolin in pitch. Okay, there's something else that you need to know. You'll need to read your documentation about this. The physics of a vibrating string is the string vibrates back and forth at a certain number of times per minute, or it's called cycles per, certain number of times per second, or what is called cycles per second. The A that is our open A string vibrates at 440 cycles per second. There's a thing on most tuners called calibration, and you need to set that to where A is defined at 440 cycles per second. Some tuners will go up as high as maybe 455 and maybe as low as like 435, or I mean 425, 15 cycles up and down basically. You need to make sure that your mandolin tuner is set for A 440. One more physics thing to know about stringed instruments. When an instrument is played, the string vibrates. The string vibrations go down through the bridge into the top, make the top of the instrument move, which excites the air molecules inside, and come out the F holes as the music sound we hear. So if I strike my A string, it vibrates. Let me get up real close to the camera so you can see this. So I'm going to strike my A string here. Hopefully you can see it. And it vibrates. There's a physics term, a physics phenomena called sympathetic vibration. When our mandolin is in tune, we have these notes: G like good, D like dog, A always, E eats. I teach little kids good dogs always eat, and that helps them remember the names of the strings. When I play the A string that is the closest one to me, or the closest one to the middle, the other A string is going to vibrate because the air molecules will excite it. And also the D strings will vibrate, the G strings will vibrate, and the E strings will vibrate, and the G strings will vibrate. That is called sympathetic vibration. A tuner hears all of those strings vibrate not just the one you're playing. So in order to give the tuner the best shot at getting your instrument right in tune, what you need to do is deaden everything except the one you're playing. So right here, I'm playing the A string that is closest to the center of the instrument. And what I'm doing is I'm taking one of the fingers of my left hand, I'm deadening the outside A string, the one that's closest to E, and deadening the two E strings. And then I'm wrapping my thumb over like this, and I'm deadening the G and D strings. So now only one A string is vibrating. Listen to that, and then listen when I take my fingers off. Do you hear there's just some more sound there when I take the fingers off? That's the sympathetic vibration that the tuner hears. And that's with all the strings except the one I'm actually playing muted. This will give you the best chance of getting your instrument right in tune with the least amount of struggle. Okay, so let's take a look at the actual playing mechanics of tuning. One quick thing, the strings, like I said before, G, D, A, E, remember the saying, good dogs always eat. There's two G strings, so we tune two of them to the same pitch. Two Ds to the same pitch, two As to the same pitch, and two Es to the same pitch. Getting two notes right in tune to the same pitch is a little tough to do, so here's the way I do it and that I recommend people do it. I will tune the A string. I'm going to do the A string again. I'm going to do the A string like I described a minute ago by deadening everything else. I keep playing it and then watch where the tuner goes. Then if I have to make it higher or lower to match the tuner to A, I of course will follow up to which tuner it is. For the middle A string, it's going to be this tuning peg that's all the way at the end on the A string side of the peg head, the last one. And while I deaden these, I'm going to watch, then I'm going to twist and see if I go higher or lower. And then I'm just going to eventually twist until it gets right into tune. Okay, now when I get that in tune with the tuner, here's the way that I tune the other one. I take the second A string and play it with the first one, but I tune it down below the pitch of the in tune one. Now I'll play them together and I'll go up with the tuning peg until two strings sounds like one to me. Right there. And I found that that gets me more in tune than tuning the two individual ones to the tuner. Now you'll need to repeat that process with all the other strings until your mandolin is in tune. There's one other thing that I want to tell you about. If you have brand new strings on your mandolin, it's going to take a while for them to stretch out and get used to being under tension. Now the other thing is if you have a new instrument, it can take a little bit of while to get used to being under tension too. There's really a few hundred pounds per square inch of tension on the top of the mandolin when it gets into standard pitch. So it takes a while, if an instrument is not used to being there, it takes a while for it to get used to there. Or if you've got an instrument that maybe is an old instrument but has not been tuned up to standard pitch for a long time, it will take that one a while to get used to being in standard pitch too. So what you'll have to do is you'll just have to keep tuning, sometimes every few minutes, but eventually as the instrument and as the strings get used to the tension that standard pitch puts the instrument under, eventually it'll settle in and you won't have to tune anywhere near as often. I do suggest tuning each time you pick up the mandolin as the strings will go out of tune a little bit. And then any time that you hear the two of the pair not being in tune, then I would tune at that time as well.